Now, we wanted to share with you a couple of basic two workflows. One of them is basic and one of them is a little bit more complex to show you kind of how these things can be applied in a practical setup. So the first one we're going to show you here is just a very simple workflow diagram. These workflow diagrams are something that I create for any job that I do, and I'll print these off and pass them around to the crew so that everybody understands not just how their little piece of the pie is working, but how everything works together, and just so that people can kind of get the holistic view. So in this first workflow here, what you're looking at is just a very simple 2-camera setup. We're not doing anything fancy. And in terms of audio, this is a very stripped down setup where we've actually removed the need for an audio board completely by just running microphones right into the cameras. And then you can send your embedded audio, the microphones, via HDMI or SDI into your video switcher, and then from there, encode up to the web. So that's a look at just a really basic, simple 2-camera setup that, doesn't take a whole lot to get going. And then I have a more complex workflow that I wanted to share with you guys here. This is from a show that I worked on in New York in 2018. This was a product launch for DJI, the company you guys are maybe familiar with. They make drones and gimbals, but this was a show for a release of one of their newest drones. So you can see this is much more complex, and this is, the stakes are much higher in a show like this. So we have 7 cameras here. We've got a presentation feed, the keynote feed you see on the left here. All of this is hitting a distribution center, which is it's a video hub. Blackmagic makes a video hub, but it's basically just a device that lets you plug in inputs, and then you can take different outputs and you can assign whatever inputs you want to different outputs. In this case, we actually have a primary and a backup video switcher, and that's something that I do standard in all of my work because you just never know in live streaming. And oftentimes, if you're running a software switcher, for example, computers just crash. Computers just have issues, and there's absolutely nothing you can do sometimes. So in this workflow, we have a primary and a backup video switcher. We also have a separate video switcher here that's just running IMAG, which refers to screens around the venue where the feed is displayed. And then there's a lot of different requirements here with recording and streaming and all that kind of stuff. So this is just to show you, not to overwhelm you, but just to show you how these setups can go from something very simple to something very complex pretty quickly. So those are kind of two ends of the spectrum.